archaic translation by W.H.D. Rhys. Jataka number 258. Mandhātu-Jātaka. Wherever sun and moon, etc. This story the master told during a stay at Jetavana monastery, about a backsliding brother. We are told that this brother, in traversing Sravasti city for his alms, saw a finely dressed woman and fell in love with her. Then the brethren led him to the hall of truth, and informed the master that he was a backslider. The master asked whether it were true. And was answered, yes, it was. Brother, said the master, when will you ever satisfy this lust, even while you are a householder? Such lust is as deep as the ocean, nothing can satisfy it. In former days there have been supreme monarchs, who attended by their group of attendants of men held sway over the 4 great continents encircled by 2,000 isles, ruling even in the heaven of the 4 great kings. Even when they were kings of the gods in the heaven of the 33, even in the dwelling of the 36 sakas, even these failed to satisfy their lust, and died before they could do so. When will you be able to satisfy it? And he told an old world tale. Long ago, in the early ages of the world, there lived a king named Mahasamata. And he had a son Roha, who had a son Vararoha, who had a son Kalyana, who had a son Varakalyana, and Varakalyana had a son named Aposatha, and Aposatha had a son Mandhātu. Mandhātu was gifted with the 7 precious things and the 4 supernatural powers. And he was a great monarch. When he clenched his left hand, and then touched it with his right, there fell a rain of 7 kinds of jewels, knee-deep, as though a celestial rain cloud had arisen in the sky. So wonderful a man was he. 84,000 years he was a prince, the same number he took some share in ruling the kingdom, and even so many years he ruled as supreme king. His life lasted for countless ages. One day, he could not satisfy some desire, so he showed signs of discontent. Why are you looking down, my lord? The courtiers asked him. When the power of my merit is considered, what is this kingdom? Which place seems worth desiring? Heaven, my lord. So rolling along the wheel of empire, with his suite he went to the heaven of the 4 great kings. The 4 kings, with a great crowd of gods, came to meet him in state, carrying celestial flowers and perfumes. And having escorted him into their heaven, gave him rule over it. There he reigned in state, and a long time went by. But not there either could he satisfy his craving. And so he began to look sick with discontent. Why, mighty king, said the 4 monarchs, are you unsatisfied? And the king replied, what place is more lovely than this heaven? They answered, my lord, we are like servants. The heaven of the 33 is more lovely than this. Mandhātu set the wheel of empire in rolling, and with his court all round him turned his face to the heaven of the 33. And Saka, king of the gods, carrying celestial flowers and perfumes, in the midst of a great crowd of gods, came to meet him in state, and taking charge of him showed him the way he should go. At the time when the king was marching amidst the crowd of gods, his eldest son took the wheel of empire, and descending to the paths of men, came to his own city. Saka led Mandhātu into the heaven of the 33, and gave him the half of his own kingdom. After that the 2 of them ruled together. Time went on, until Saka had lived for 60 times 100,000 years, and 30 millions of years, then was born on earth again. Another Saka grew up, and he too reigned, and lived his life, and was born on earth. In this way 36 Sakas followed one after another. Still Mandhātu reigned with his crowd of courtiers round him. As time went on, the force of his passion and desire grew stronger and stronger. What is half a realm to me? Said he in his heart. I will kill Saka, and reign alone. But kill Saka he could not. This desire and greed of his was the root of his misfortune. The power of his life began to decline. Old age seized upon him. But a human body does not disintegrate in heaven. So from heaven he fell, and descended in a park. The gardener made known his coming to the royal family. They came and appointed him a resting place in the park. There lay the king in lassitude and weariness. The courtiers asked him, "My lord, what word shall we take from you?" "Take from me," said he, "this message to the people. Mandhātu, King of Kings, having ruled supreme over the 4 quarters of the globe, with all the 2,000 islands round about. For a long time having reigned over the people of the 4 great kings, having been king of heaven during the lifetime of 36 Sakas, now lies dead." With these words he died, and went to fare according to his deeds. This tale ended, the master became perfectly enlightened and uttered the following stanzas. Wherever sun and moon their courses run, all are Mandhātu servants, every one. Wherever earth's quarters see the light of day, their king Mandhātu holds imperial sway. Not though a rain of coins fall from the sky could anything be found to satisfy. Pain is desire, and sorrow is unrest. He that knows this is wise, and he is blessed. Where longing is, there pleasure takes him wings, even though desire be set on heavenly things. Disciples of the very Buddha try to crush out all desire eternally. When the master had ended this discourse, he explained the 4 truths, and identified the birth. At the conclusion of the truths the backsliding brother and many others attained to the fruit of the first path. At that time, I was the great king Mandhātu. Source: adapted from archaic translation by Rhys. Jataka number 259. Tirīṭa-Vaccha-Jātaka. When all alone, etc. This story the master told while living at Jetavana monastery. About the gift of 1,000 garments, how the Reverend Ananda received 500 garments from the women of the household of the king of Kosala, and 500 from the king himself. The circumstances have been described above, in the Sagala birth. Once upon a time, while Brahmadatta was king of Benares, the Bodhisattva was born as the son of a Brahmin in Kasi. On his name day they called him Master Tirīṭa-Vaccha. In due time he grew up, and studied at Taxila. He married and settled down, but his parents' death so distressed him that he became an ascetic, and lived in a woodland living, feeding upon the roots and fruits of the forest. While he lived there, arose a disturbance on the frontiers of Benares. The king went there, but was defeated in the fight. Fearing for his life, he mounted an elephant, and fled away covertly through the forest. In the morning, Tirīṭa-Vaccha had gone abroad to gather wild fruit, and meanwhile the king came upon his hut. "A hermit's hut?" said he. Down he came from his elephant, weary with wind and sun, and thirsty. He looked about for a water pot, but none could he find. At the end of the covered walk he saw a well, but he could see no rope and bucket for withdrawing water. His thirst was too great to bear. He took off the belt which passed under the elephant's belly, made it fast on the edge, and let himself down into the well. But it was too short. So he tied onto the end of it his lower garment, and let himself down again. Still he could not reach the water. He could just touch it with his feet. He was very thirsty. "If I can but quench my thirst," thought he, "death itself will be sweet." So down he dropped, and drank his fill. But he could not get up again, so he remained standing there in the well. And the elephant, so well trained was he, stood still, waiting for the king. In the evening, the Bodhisattva returned, laden with wild fruits, and saw the elephant. "I suppose," thought he, "the king is come. But nothing is to be seen except the armed elephant. What's to do?" And he approached the elephant, which stood and waited for him. He went to the edge of the well, and saw the king at the bottom. "Fear nothing, O king," he called out. Then he placed a ladder, and helped the king out. He massaged the king's body, and anointed him with oil. After which he gave him of the fruits to eat, and untied the elephant's armor. 2 or 3 days the king rested there. Then he went away, after making the Bodhisattva promise to pay him a visit. The royal forces were encamped hard by the city. And when the king was perceived coming, they flocked around him. After a month and half a month, the Bodhisattva returned to Benares, and settled in the park. Next day he came to the palace to ask for food. The king had opened a great window, and stood looking out into the courtyard. And so seeing the Bodhisattva, and recognizing him, he descended and gave him greeting. He led him to a dais, and set him upon the throne under a white umbrella. His own food the king gave him to eat, and ate himself of it. Then he took him to the garden, and caused a covered walk and a living to be made for him, and provided him with all the necessities of an ascetic. Then giving him in charge of a gardener, he said farewell, and departed. After this, the Bodhisattva took his food in the king's living. Great was the respect and honor paid to him. But the courtiers could not endure it. If a soldier, said they, were to receive such honor, how would he behave? They took them to the viceroy. My lord, our king is making too much of an ascetic. What can he have seen in the man? You speak with the king about it? The viceroy consented, and they all went together before the king. And the viceroy greeted the king, and uttered the first stanza. There is no wit in him that I can see. He is no kinsman, nor a friend of you. Why should this hermit with 3 bits of wood, Tirīṭa-Vaccha, have such splendid food? The king listened. Then he said, addressing his son, My son, you remember how once I went to the marches, and how I was conquered in war, and came not back for a few days? I remember, said B. This man saved my life, said the king. And he told him all that had happened. Well, my son, now that this my preserver is with me, I cannot return favor to him for what he has done, not even were I to give him my kingdom. And he recited the 2 stanzas following. When all alone, in a grim thirsty wood, he, and no other, tried to do me good. In my distress he lent a helping hand. Half dead he brought me up and made me stand. By his sole doing I returned again out of death's jaws back to the world of men. To compensate such kindness is but fair. Give a rich offering, nor hold back his share. So spoke the king, as though he were causing the moon to rise up in the sky. And as the virtue of the Bodhisattva was described, so was described his own virtue everywhere. And his takings increased, and the honor shown to him. After that neither his viceroy nor his courtiers nor anyone else dared to say anything against him to the king. The king dwelling in the Bodhisattva's advice. And he gave alms and did good, and at the last went to the heaven. And the Bodhisattva, having cultivated the perfections and the attainments, became destined to the world of Brahma. Then the master added, wise men of old gave help too, and having thus concluded his discourse, he identified the birth as follows: Ananda was the king, and I was the hermit.